Do you remember being a kid and thinking thoughts that would make you cry? I had to laugh because I remember being one of those kids. And here's the thing about crying. Sometimes you're crying because of something that's very present, and then it passes, the emotions pass through you, and you can let it go and go about it, right? And one of the things that we love about children is that they're very present. They're not feeling something from 15 years ago if they're 5, or they're not feeling something from 20 years ago if they're 10. It's very present in that moment. So they can move through it. They can go through a complete cycle of recovery because they have felt the pain. They've gone through the stress cycle of being activated, and then they felt the emotion, and they can return to home base, okay? And if there's a caring adult there, it makes it even better. Now, sometimes when kids cry, they may couple the present pain with the previous experience. And I laughed at myself because I did this. And there were some events that were not as serious. So I was coupling, falling on my knee with the last time I fell on my knee. Now, if no one was there when I fell, and that happens again and again and again, we see now that the research says that even not having an adult there to process information with us can be very traumatizing, and trauma being an internal experience, what happens to our mind-body system, okay? So if a child is crying and they are crying over something that's present, they're able to move through it with a little bit more agility, a little bit more speed. But if the child is coupling the present day pain, the present moment pain, with something that's happening in a larger span in their lives, maybe it's a family event, things that happened last year, they're in a series of prolonged stressful events, they may not be able to recover from crying in that moment in the speed that is healthy for them, okay? So in this video, I want to share with you some tips that you can use, whether it's the child in you or the child in front of you, how you can support them with thinking thoughts that help you to move through your cycle of recovery, okay? And this is all based in the research. Of course, I'm going to weave in things that I see today as a kid's life coach, as an educator, and I'm going to weave in things from my own life, okay? So buckle up for story time, okay? Now, when a child has an adult there who's able to help them move through their stress activation cycle, again, helping that child return to home base, homeostasis, that child is better off long term than the child who does not have an adult there to regulate with them. Now, when we say regulate, co-regulate, doesn't mean hurry up, why are you feeling that way, stop doing that, you just don't, I wish you would stop, you look like your daddy when you cry. Not that. It is horrible, it's mean, it is nearly evil, okay? And so when we're co-regulating with children, with youth included, because youth are still children, I'm not saying 25-year-olds are children, but 15, 16, they're still children, okay? We want to be able to sit with them, okay? And just them being able to feel our presence makes a difference. You don't always have to say something. And if you watch enough of my videos, you'll know that I say the same things about just sitting with people and the power of sitting with. I was watching Will Trent. That's a really good show if you watch Will Trent. You can find it on Hulu. And I can't remember her character's name right now, but she was on The Wire as a young woman, and now she's a supervisor on Will Trent, the show. And she's Will Trent's supervisor. And Will Trent asks, "What are we doing right now?" I think it's the last episode. And she says, "We're just sitting." And it reminds Will Trent of when he was talking to the pastor. And the pastor says, sitting is a form of prayer. Sometimes you just need to sit with people. And for those of us who have a knowledge of our history, we know that our people have been sitting with each other for thousands of years. So when we just sit and we allow our presence to be felt, our loving, wise, healing presence to be felt, is very transformative for that person, because they know that someone's there with them. Okay? Now, in the event that you're sitting by yourself, here's the good stuff. That's good too. Here's some more good stuff. If you're thinking thoughts that make you sad, if you're thinking thoughts that make you frustrated, you can observe that thought pattern, because we all have thought patterns in different contexts. Cue different thought patterns, different streams of thoughts, okay? So if you're in a place where you trip over something, you hit your toe, if you don't attach that hitting your toe to anything else, you're like, oh gosh, this really, really hurts. And then you move on. Now, if the room is cluttered, and there are people who've grown up with clutter as a child, as a teenager, and they cannot stand a cluttered space. If they're in the cluttered space, maybe it's a workspace, or, it could be a school, a nonprofit, whatever the case may be. If they're in the workspace and they hit their toe and the room is cluttered, it could trigger memories of their previous life being in the cluttered space and how upsetting that is. Now, they may not cry, but they may be very irritated because this present day space reminds them of a space they grew up when they were a child. And if they're not able to change the way the space is organized, that could be frustrating as well. So you see how, it could be the environment that triggers a certain response. But here's the thing, when you observe your thought pattern, you say, well, I hit my toe, it hurts, okay? Is this connected to something else? Simple question. Isn't that exciting? It's that simple. Now, it's harder to do in the moment, but I want you to practice this. Is this connected to something else? Am I relating this to another event? Because when you ask that question, see, you're using your thinking brain, and you're creating the conditions for your survival part of your brain back here in the emotional region as well. You're creating a space for your survival brain to recover from the stress. Okay? Now, let's take it a little deeper than hitting your toe on the side of the desk. Okay? Maybe you were not invited somewhere. Okay? And you found out that somebody, the same person who told you they were busy, was hanging out with people who are your friends. Now that can be very upsetting. It can be a very sad thing. So let's go with that example. Let's say you have a history of not being invited to certain places. When you see the picture of this friend with your friends and you're not there, what does that trigger in you? Do not say, I shouldn't be crying. Go ahead, feel what you feel. Don't say, I shouldn't be upset, I introduced them. No, they still excluded you. That's very painful. Okay, and research shows that sometimes social pain resonates as physical pain because it's lighting up the same region in the brain. Okay? Go look it up. Don't believe me, just go look it up. So you see your friend who told you they're not available hanging out with your friends. The joy of being outside, all the cars passing by. And now you feel a certain type of way about it. Okay? What do you feel? Go ahead and feel it. Don't judge yourself. Now, I want you to observe. As you breathe and as you cry, gosh, this feels like when this happened, this feels like this when this happened. Is it connected to, am I relating this to a previous event? If the answer is yes, good. Good, good, good. Because you're being honest. Because it is hurting you. It's not just a present day thing. It's like, oh yeah, no. That relates to my history of being excluded. And then I want you to test, as you observe your thoughts passing by, I want you to test those thoughts. Is that true? Is that true? Is that true? So the first question is, am I relating this to a previous event? And then as you test your thoughts, well, is that really true? Is that really true? No one ever calls me. Is that really true? No, people do call me. They don't call me as much as I want them to call me, but they do call me. I haven't heard from so-and-so in a while. They must not like me. Don't make that assumption. Call them. I just was calling to see how you're doing. You know, it's been a while. I was thinking of you. And here's the third thing. Check your expectation. What are you expecting? What are you expecting? So when you call that person, or you see them in person, or you're just by yourself, you want to have an expectation. When you're going through a cycle of stress activation, there's a stressor, there's an interpretation, there's a response. Your goal is to get back to home base. Your goal is to go home. Go back home. Where's home? Homeostasis. Back to your baseline. Because we're going to experience stress, we're going to experience hardships, we're going to experience failures. Those are part of life. And those are the very things that build our resilience. Resilience is not a luxury. Resilience is not something to, that some people have and others don't. It's something that we have to nurture. And when we use our thinking brain to say, hey, is this related to something else? Yeah, it is. Well, what is that? See, you're noticing, okay? And it's like, well, let me notice where I'm sitting. If I can notice what I'm feeling, I can notice where I'm sitting. And that is going to help you to be present in the moment. It helps you to know, your survival brain to know that it's not 2020, April 2nd, okay? It's 2024, March 28th. Yeah, I think it's the 28th today. And so where am I sitting? Where are my hands? Where are my feet? And as you ask those questions, then you are creating a safe space for your survival brain to release that energy that's associated with stress. So now, going back to your friends hanging out without you. You cry, okay? Don't judge yourself, just cry, let it out. And if you say, well, I don't cry anymore, I don't know if this applies to you, but allow yourself to feel something, okay? And I'm not saying induce self-harm to feel something, although people do. I'm not saying drive really fast and do donuts, even though some people do, because they're trying to feel something. Those are adrenaline-seeking behaviors. Maybe it's a matter of jumping rope. Maybe it's a matter of pushing in the wall, doing push-ups, and just allowing yourself to take a deep breath and let it out. Some people scream. Whatever it may be, you release that energy. But the first thing is, you want to be able to recognize, is this tied to something else? And then, as your thoughts pass by and you're crying or whatever the case may be, you're breathing. As your thoughts pass by, you ask, is this true? Is this true? Is that true? And that way you're checking it, because everything we think is not true. I want you to notice where you're sitting. As you notice what's happening within you, notice where you're sitting. Okay? I'm sitting outside. The sunlight is on my face. I'm wearing a jacket. Okay? My feet are on the ground. What do I see? I see a tree. I see a car. Okay, what do you hear? And that orients you to the present moment. I hope this was helpful for you, because the more we can go through a complete cycle of recovery when we've been stressed, the more we can build our resilience, and the more we can apply our wholeness to wherever we are. I bless you. I want the best for you, and I see you.